Oof. Pacers lose in Game 5 here in the Garden. They get crushed as they admit, embarrassed by the New York Knicks. It all comes back to rebounding. Everything spreads out from there, plus need a little more from Tyrese Haliburton. Offense vanishes when the game gets close in the second half, and a lot more coming on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Wednesday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today we're in MSG, where it's very hot and I'm very sweaty, and the Pacers got embarrassed by the Knicks. And I'm not saying that as my opinion of what happened in the game, although it is my opinion of what happened in the game. I'm saying that as someone who just listened to Rick Carlisle say that the Pacers got embarrassed by the New York Knicks here in the Garden. Man, oh man, does this come down to rebounding, the glass, the boards, whatever synonym you want for the rebounds. The Pacers got crushed in that department. It wasn't close. Changed the game. The possession battle was everything. This is what this series could have been defined by. Talked about it in a series preview with Gavin Shaw, wrote about it, asked players about it, and today was the first time it looked as lopsided as it possibly could have. And a lot of other stuff went wrong for the Pacers. Haliburton shots, attempts weren't as much as they usually are. Again, why was that? The Knicks changed some stuff. I don't even know. I got totally off script for my intro. I'm Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and we have a lot to talk about here from Game 5, the loss in MSG for the Pacers. And we'll get into all of it right now, including and starting with what I think is the place to start, which is the rebounding. Look, if you listen to me talk a lot, or if you listen to this podcast a lot, but you don't really care if it's me, I don't hammer home the point of rebounding very often in Pacers games, because I think rebounding typically is a reflection of how many missed shots you forced in a game. If you shoot way better percentage than your opponent, you're likely also going to win the rebounding battle because you have more chances to get rebounds. And so to me, rebounding is talked about poorly. This game was not that at all. This game was the opposite of that. This game is when people who talk about the rebounding battle have all their legs to stand on and make all the correct points. This game was rebounding mastery by the Knicks and rebounding disastery, to make up a word to talk about it, by the Indiana Pacers, who looked dreadful, absolutely god-awful, rebounding the ball for all 48 minutes of this game. They were making shots early, so it didn't matter, but as soon as the shots stopped falling, they could not go on any sort of run because the Knicks were just hammering them on the glass. I tweeted this during the game. At one point in the second quarter, the Pacers had 7 rebounds as a team. Second quarter, Pacers had 7 rebounds as a team. The Knicks had 12 offensive rebounds, not rebounds, offensive boards. So that was, that defined the game. So let's review it now that the game is over. The Pacers finished the night. By the way, the Pacers did better on the glass at home. They did well. They won those games, got back on track. It was very, much better. They tied the series up. It's the reason that this is not a series-ending loss. But this game, none of that happened. They had 5 offensive rebounds, the Pacers did, in this game. That's not going to cut it. Isaiah Hartenstein had more than that. Isaiah Hartenstein had way more than that. We'll get to him in a second. Pacers end the night with 29 rebounds. The Knicks had 20 offensive rebounds. The Knicks had 53. That's a 23 rebound difference. That is more than just makes and misses. In fact, it's very easy to look at the percentages. The Knicks shot 46.5%. That's better than the Pacers, who shot 43.1%. That's not enough of a difference to have a 23 rebound difference. You get the point of what I'm saying. The other stat that often ends up skewing shot attempts is free throws. The Pacers took 22 foul shots. The Knicks took 19. Not a huge difference in field goal percentage. Not a huge difference on the free throws. And yet the Knicks won by 30, 121-91, because they dominated the glass so hard. 24 rebound advantage for the Knicks that they took 29 more shots than the Pacers in this game. 29 more shots. That's unbelievable. The Pacers took 72 shots in this game. The Knicks took 101. That is where this game, that's the whole game, right? I could spread out, and I'm going to talk about a lot of different things that happened in this basketball game, whether that's Tyrese Haliburton, lineup changes, all sorts of stuff. But it all comes to this in some way, right? And it was an unbelievable effort on the glass from the Knicks. Isaiah Hartenstein, this is his thing. He had 12. A lot of them were in traffic right over a Myles Turner, a Pascal Siakam. someone else. They were not good enough on the glass. Josh Hart had 11, as he does 7 for DiVincenzo in this game, 5 for Achua and Alec Burks off the bench. The Pacers leader was Siakam with 8, no one else with more than 5. Soft game on the glass from the Pacers. And that's like my least favorite sports term to say, but it happened in this game. 29 shot attempts. You know how impossible that is to overcome in the season. For some references here, the Pacers 16 times. Oh, wait, I'm on the wrong side. The Pacers this season, to get this right, 3 times. There we go. Holy cow. 3 times the Pacers' opponent this season took more than 100 shots, right? That was at New York Knicks, funnily enough, on February 1st, at Philadelphia on November 12th, and at Golden State on March 22nd. 3 times Pacers allowed their opponents to take more than 100 shots. In those games, they took 93, 99, and 90 shots. So less, but they were right there, right? Within 10, within 9. They beat Golden State handily in that game, and they only lost to the Knicks by 4, and they were right there with Philly, right? They kept up. This game, the Knicks took 101 shots, and the Pacers took 72. I mean, that's like impossible to fathom how hard that is to overcome. I don't even know what would be required from a percentage perspective to overcome that. For another reference, I should have just started with this. In the regular season, the Pacers took fewer than 80 shots in 2 games. At Atlanta on January 12th, they took 79. And at Orlando on March 10th, they took 78. And in that game, they had 33 free throw attempts. So they took a lot of shots. But either way, those 2 games, low field goal attempt numbers. Their opponents were below 90 both times. So within 10, even on bad rebounding games for a bad rebounding team. 29. I can't possibly hammer home this point enough about how lopsided and impossible to overcome that is. Pacers shot 44% from deep, 1 at the foul line, weren't terrible around the basket, although definitely needed to be better. Like an okay enough efficiency to win, but they had such few chances. They never got their own misses. They never got the Knicks misses. They can't play in transition that way because they can't get the rebound. So there goes their identity. Like it all falls apart so fast when you don't have chances to score and you don't have chances to score the way you would like to play. It's so obvious to say all this, but when you really go through the numbers and realize how infrequently the Pacers take this few shots and how infrequently they allow this few shots, the fact that it happened in the same game, I'm pounding this granite countertop, the same game is unbelievable. Such a poor effort on the glass for the Pacers. I asked Rick Carlisle about it after the game. To him, was it an energy thing? Was it a technique thing? And he kind of, what technique? Just box outs in general, were they bad? And he said, oh yeah, box outs, they were bad, right? Like the boxing out was not where it needed to be. So I'm not saying this as, I always say this, and I feel like I hate that I qualify this, but people just throw around the word excuse way too much. They don't say it correctly. This is an excuse. This is a thing that happened in the game. So a lot of times the Pacers are, doing whatever they're doing to Brunson, doubling or stunting or scram switching, whatever word you want to use, right? Traps. And when that happens and a shot comes up kind of quickly after it, rebounding is harder, right? When you're in rotation or when you're not matched up specifically with the guy you start the possession on, or you're just, in general, there's 2 guys on one, rebounding is harder because naturally you try to box out the guy you were just on. It's harder to find a guy. And earlier in the series, and at times when the Pacers have been more focused and better on the glass, they've been better at addressing that and getting to the right spot and getting on someone or getting the board in general, being physical in those moments. But it's hard to do, right? Teams talk about that a lot. That's a key thing for the Nuggets to me a lot when Jokic draws too. But anyway, I'm watching the Nuggets on a screen right behind my laptop right now. Anyway, I say that to say it's hard. And that is where the Pacers looked miserable tonight a lot to me. And so that's not an excuse for their poor rebounding. I think that's why they rebounded so bad is they would have a lot of moments where there were 2 on Brunson or 2 near Brunson. Pass would go up. Someone else would get ready to shoot, or 2 passes, hockey assists, balls going up, and like 3 guys are boxing out too, and no one's boxing out someone else. And that was like half, or a little less than half, but that was some of the rebounds the Knicks got, and they earned those. But there were a lot of rebounds that were just like pathetic effort. Isaiah Hartenstein jumps higher or bumps harder or whatever, or Josh Hart does that, or whoever, name a player. A lot of guys were good. Hartenstein had 12 of their 20 offensive boards. DiVincenzo got a few. Like it just was a butt kicking on the glass by the New York Knicks. And very rarely do I think it totally defines a basketball game who wins on the glass. Usually I think that's just reflection of shooting percentage. In this game, it was not at all. In this game, the defining trait, the reason the Pacers looked so bad, they couldn't run in transition. They couldn't play with any tempo. Their defensive possessions were so long. They didn't get any extra chances for themselves to make up for that gap. They weren't hitting hard enough, and that physicality bleeds to all other parts of the game. Every single thing about this loss comes back to rebounding. Pacers were terrible on the glass. So they had no chance of winning when they were this poor on the glass, even though they were efficient enough early to stay ahead of it. They never were going to win it if they played this Knicksy of a game. They never got out of it, and they lose. Down 3-2, heading back to Indy. The home teams won every game in this series, but this is the first 2-day gap before a game. It's tough. It's a very tough series. Pacers have to win both of the last two, or their season will end by the end of the weekend. They've shown they can beat the Knicks, but they can't win against the Knicks if they play like that. If they play like that again in either of the last two games, they will not sniff the conference finals. It will be over. Their physicality was atrocious. It was not where it needed to be. They did not look like a team ready for what the Knicks were going to do and what was talked about so much before the series. So much of that has to be better. And a lot of stuff has to be better than just that. That was the biggest thing by far, but it was not the only thing that really changed this game for the Pacers. So much more to get to. Haliburton, turnovers, defense, change starting five for the New York Knicks, and much more still to come on today's Locked On Pacers podcast. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. We all carry around different stressors, big and small. When we keep them bottled up, it can start to affect us negatively. Therapy is a safe space to get things off your chest and figure out exactly how to work through whatever is weighing you down. Therapy can be helpful for anybody. It can help you learn positive coping skills, how to set boundaries, and it empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It's not just for people who have experienced major trauma. So if you've been thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It can help you with some of that stuff I just said, like figuring out how to manage your stress, something I've had to deal with quite a bit recently with so much going on in the postseason. BetterHelp is entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist. Switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Get it off your chest with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day for your second listen. It's got to be Locked On Knicks. I'm sure they're doing backflips about the game they just saw from the hometown New York Knicks, who just went ham on the glass and played Knicks basketball and made the Pacers shrivel up into a ball of dust for 48 minutes, maybe like 40 minutes. The first 8 minutes, the Pacers looked pretty good. The rest of the game looked awful. A defining stretch of this game to me, and something that kind of summarizes the secondary part of the Pacers' struggles, was the mid-third quarter. So to start the third quarter, Pacers were down 15 at halftime. That became, I'm trying to do math very quickly. It became 16 pretty quickly. And then the Myles Turner show started. Credit to Myles Turner. He looked really good to start the third quarter in this stretch. He realized the pick and pop was there. He got to it. He hit a three. The next possession, guess what? He did the same thing. He popped out and hit another three. You can never guess what happened on the third possession. He popped out, hit another three, all assisted by a different player. And that cut the lead from 70-54 to 63-70. Pacers are down 7. They're back in the game. Huge stretch, huge sequence. And then Turner hit the third three at the 9:56 mark of the third quarter. 7-point game. They're back in it. It's not looking like the Knicks are going to dominate. Maybe the Pacers figured something out. Maybe they figured out some spacing. Who knows? The Pacers did not hit another shot until Ben Shepherd hit a three with 2:56 to go in the third quarter. That's 7 minutes. 7 minutes without making a shot. In that stretch, the Knicks went from 70 points to 90, or to 89. Almost said 91. To 89. 19-1 run. The Pacers got a free throw in there. That was the game. That ended it for the Pacers and kind of showed everything about what this game was. The Knicks piling on and the Pacers being unable to respond. But the reason it was so defining is the Knicks defense was much better in this game at a lot of stuff. In that quarter, Pacers were 7 for 17 and the Knicks were 11 for 26. Doesn't this just go to show what I just talked about in the last segment? The Pacers were 1% worse from the field in that quarter. They lost that quarter by 6 points. And they went 7 minutes without scoring, but the Knicks were so good on the glass that all these extra chances, 9 extra shots in a quarter, that they can still win a quarter despite giving up a 9-0 run in the blink of an eye and watching their lead shrivel up that quickly. I mean, they just dominated the glass, took over in every way. Pacers couldn't do anything. They made 2 2-point shots the entire quarter. That showed a lot to me about this game. The Knicks defense was much better. They switched something up in this game that was significant. They're starting 5. I think the Pacers will be more ready for this in Game 6, to be fair. It was the Knicks starting 5. In the second half of Game 5, they said they expected this adjustment to be a thing, but you still have to play against it to kind of see what it's going to look like and adjust to it. Either way, The Knicks changed their starting five. Deuce McBride started in place of Precious Achiuwa. Deuce McBride plus 26, Precious Achiuwa plus 15. They both looked better in their roles and made the front court make more sense for the Knicks throughout the game. They were both very good. So I think that was something they're going to obviously stick with. Now, one thing that makes this not it makes this a little embarrassing for the Pacers is intuitively, as Rick Carlisle said after the game, they started someone smaller in place of someone bigger, and they still dominated the glass. Deuce McBride guarded Haliburton. He's a pesky defender. That's what he does. The thing about this starting five for the Knicks now is if it's Brunson, McBride, Hart, DiVincenzo, one, they need to get the Pascal post-ups going. Pascal 7 for 15 with 22 points. He had 7 free throw attempts. He made 6 of them. Better. I thought he was much better than apparently the entire internet. A lot of people tweeting at me stuff about how poorly they thought he was playing. Like, they played his minutes. The Pacers played Pascal's minutes pretty well in this game, I thought. I guess that was a very unpopular opinion. They went small with Siakam topping again against the Achiuwa at the 5 minutes. That went well in game 4. It went okay. Not great. Okay. In game 5, the top and bench minutes were a disaster. The Pacers have gone as the bench has gone in this series. The bench was a disaster in this game. But I'm rambling to say the starting 5 change for the Knicks was really successful for them. The thing that it added is shooting and speed, and that's 2 tough things to defend. And one makes it harder to rebound. Longer rebounds, right? More feistiness out there, I guess. Makes it harder to rebound, and when it's that much harder to defend, it's an energy drainer, right? Knicks took 35 threes. McBride in there took 7 as a starter. That's the second most of any Knick behind Alec Burks, who was chucking and hitting. But that is a new look 5 that was pretty good. Brunson had more space, which was big for him. He took 35 shots. 35 shots, and he should have, and he was making them. He looked amazing. He also had 7 assists. Again, McBride got up 7 threes. Josh Hart got up 7 threes. DiVincenzo stunk. He was over 6 from deep, but we know he's better than that from this whole series. This lineup has speed and spacing, and it's harder to defend it, and it's much harder to hide Haliburton, which is key in this game. This happened quite a bit. He talked about it, but you saw a lot where whoever Haliburton was guarding would screen or be involved in a screen with Brunson. Haliburton was scramming it to get out. He wasn't getting out fast enough. He wasn't peeling away correctly. That either let Hartenstein be the hub or Hartenstein get going to the basket, or someone was open 2 passes away. A lot of machinations of what that looks like. But they were picking on Haliburton a ton in the first half defensively. I asked him about it after the game. I said, how do you feel like you did in those? He said, no, terrible in the first half. Not good. Better in the second half. Terrible in the first half. Got to watch the film. Got to be better. I appreciate the accountability, of course. I hope everybody does, but also like an acknowledgement he's got to be better. It didn't happen during the game. He has to be better than that defensively because the small ball group's going to require that of him. He's going to have to defend more in space. He's going to have to defend more speed and then translate that into offense. And maybe it's just the Pacers get rebounds and can actually get out and run a little bit. And that's something else Haliburton brought up is if they're playing against a speedy group that's, forcing and still beating them on the glass, they can't run and they're, actually like frantic on defense. That's a hard combo. They can't play their style at all if that's the case. But anyway, I've talked a lot about this. The starting lineup change was a big plus for the Knicks. Now, it's been a game that it's happened, and I expect the Pacers will be more prepared for it with actual game tape to look at come game 6, but they did not do well against this group. Brunson plus 31, plus 26 for Deuce McBride, plus 21 for, I don't need to read all the numbers. They struggled with that group. Pacer starters, all big negatives, except for Siakam, who found some successes with the best groups the Pacers had in this game. So that's something to look out for going forward. It's a lock the Knicks are going to stick with that starting 5 now. They have to, given that it actually worked. But it really, I think, was a big part of throwing off the Pacers, and Haliburton's defense was not good enough. You know what else was good enough for Tyrese Haliburton? And he'll tell you, his offense wasn't aggressive again. And, in game 1s, my theory has been he's feeling out of series a bit. That's not a good thing. That's a bad thing. But still, in a game like this where, he's being guarded by someone new and the lineups are different, I guess that for a little bit of the game, I can see that. But it's only take 9 shots in the whole game, and it just didn't look good. It just did not look good at all in this game. I truly have nothing to say about it other than he has to be better. He has to be better. He has to find ways to get into the paint and play from there. He had a couple yucky turnovers, although he only had 2 turnovers in general. He wasn't even setting up his teammates as much. Only 5 assists that did tie for leading on the Pacers, but they did not particularly have good assists. The Knicks did a good job cutting off the basket in this game, even on non-Haliburton drives, right? The Pacers finished with 36 points in the paint. Usually that's a key number for them, and it was again in this game, and I'll talk about that more in a second. but that was a big thing for the Knicks, cutting off the paint. Haliburton couldn't get in there and couldn't spray out from there. I don't know exactly what the Knicks were doing differently to make that happen. In fact, I literally have a note in this game. This is going to make me sound terrible, right? It's been pretty clear to me where a lot of the adjustments that should be coming from or have been throughout the series, at least big picture stuff. The nitty gritty stuff I'm not as good at. Like, it felt like for a lot of the first half of this game, outside of the starting lineup change for the Knicks, like, it felt kind of similar to game 4. It was just the Knicks were playing way better, and the Pacers, were playing way worse. And that was kind of from the stars. Brunson was way, way, way better, and Haliburton was way, way, way worse. And there you go. Pacers get absolutely crushed in that way. Haliburton's got to be better on both ends in game 6 if the Pacers want a chance. Again, minus 22 for him. That was a second lowest number on the Pacers. 5 for 9 for 13 points. Isn't going to cut it. He knows it. And they move on to game 6 in Indy. 2 days off for the first time of this series. So the Knicks get some rest. The Pacers also get some rest for their star guard, who's been dealing with back stuff. I'll be curious how much the 2 days off matters. It's the first time of the series. Plenty more to talk about from this game. Stuff that did maybe go well for the Pacers, stuff that did not. Can they adjust in game 6 with the season on the line? We'll talk about that to close out today's show. But first, we've got to talk about Game Time, an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices of the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. Pacers playing, of course, very soon on Friday. You can check it out all on Game Time. A lot of good deals there. It's very easy. It's a good experience. How do I know? I've done it before. I went to the Liberty Wings game in Brooklyn last year. You can see the view from your seat right there on the app. There's no hidden fees, so the price you see is the price you pay at the end. I love that they have the Game Time guarantee, which if you look through it is basically, you're getting the lowest price because you'll get 110% credit if you find cheaper tickets in the same section in a row. You have event cancellation protection, job loss protection, flexible customer service policies. Everything is great. This is everything I wanted in a ticket buying app, and I hope everybody is the same way. There's no guesswork, right? Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And we're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day for your second listen, either Locked On Nuggets or Locked On Wolves, depending on who wins that game. It's halftime for me right now, so I can't tell you. I can't see the future. I'm going to predict the Nuggets win, and I frequently look dumb. Let's keep going on Pacers Knicks here. I have so many notes from this game. They did not start with Hartenstein on Siakam. I thought for sure with a small group that would happen, and we'd see Siakam look great in this game. We did not see Siakam look great in this game, even though he got the shots he wanted early. I thought he played better than a lot of people did, but I think they've got to go to him more if that's the alignment the Knicks are going to run with. Like in the post, he sets a screen. Whatever happens on the screen, he goes into the post and just flows into it. Their best post entry passers have to be all over that, I think. Nembhard is a particularly good post entry passer to me. Like he's got to get that in there. Pacers beat themselves in this game. Like I know the Knicks won by 30, but this was going to be my theme for this game had it not ended so poorly on the glass. But the turnovers, some of their shot selection in the first half, the rebounding kind of is beating yourself when it's an effort rebound, not a skill rebound. Like they beat themselves. They did a lot of even Haliburton said this, a lot of self-inflicted dumb stuff that if they can clean it up for the next game, they'll look a lot better. No, obviously they're 30. It's not just that, right? It got taken out of their hands a lot by the way the Knicks played, which is not self-inflicted. But in the first half, I thought they beat themselves, and they've got to be better, obviously. But if they can beat them, if they cannot beat themselves, it'll at least be a close game. And I thought it was going to be when they stopped beating themselves during the third quarter, and then they were awful for the next 7 minutes. This game reminded me a lot of game 1 for a lot of the first half in that way. Brunson kicked their butt again. I know I talked about his stat line again, but I mean, I wondered this, right? Is that Nembhard ended up on him more because Nesmith had some foul trouble at times in this game. He ended up with 4. They can't guard him. They just cannot guard him all the time. I still wonder how much of Games 3 and 4 was something they were actually doing more effectively, which I could see the games. I know they did stuff more effectively. I'm not writing that off completely, but versus him being somewhat injured and less bursty, which I can also see in the games that even times he had chances to do stuff, he had less burst. So I, of course, think it's a little of both because I'm a fence sitter, but I'm going to be a fence sitter again and say I think it was a little of both, and he looked more bursty today. He got up 35 shots, and he made a lot of them. He's a good player. If he's going to be that good again, the Pacers have to find a better way to slow him down. Pacers called 5 first-half timeouts, which I didn't actually think was a problem because they were down so much late it didn't matter. They didn't need to re-strategize, but that's how bad and low effort they were playing for much of the first 24 minutes of this game. 5 of their 7. They had 2 timeouts left come the second half. I mean, it was unbelievable, and I thought a lot of them were very warranted. So all of that bringing together, just a lot of bad for the Pacers in this game. I mean, Deuce McBride running around. He's basically holding Haliburton's jersey off ball. And I'm not saying that he's fouling him. I'm saying like he's literally so close to him off the ball. A lot of times in these games when Haliburton has low shot attempts, it's on him. But like a lot of times he'll give it up and he'll never get it back, even when he should. And I think that's on Deuce McBride doing good stuff. Something that I think the Pacers need to be more creative with in the next game is screening to get him open off the ball. So that's adjustment number 1. If they're going to stick with that same lineup, as soon as Haliburton gives it up, he's got to run through some screens or do something off the ball, which he's better at than people give him credit for, but definitely not his forte. Certainly, they're trying to warp him into that a little bit after the Siakam trade. If you remember that portion of the season, getting him more involved in that way, make Deuce McBride navigate screens, use Haliburton's size advantage there. I think that is going to matter a little bit going forward. I think that's going to be a key adjustment if McBride starts once again. Another adjustment is boring, which is why I was talking about the Pacers beat themselves. Play better, rebound better, box out better, find your man, be ready to recover to someone in scramble situations. I think it's important in those moments to remember who your matchup is supposed to be, not who you're currently on. And I know that that's easier said than done because naturally you just find the guy closest to you and box him out. That's how it's worked your whole life. It's different in the NBA when you're doing creative defenses and are required to do more. Pacers couldn't do anything at the rim. I kind of glossed over this earlier. 36 points in the paint. That is incredibly bad. They absolutely have to be better in that way. I think I ran through this during the season. They had that game against the Nets, the win over the Nets late in the regular season where the Pacers had like 80 points in the paint and were just incredible in that way. And then that went away. But that was I did a whole segment on why it's so important for the Pacers and why if they can keep dominating the points in the paint, they'll look really good. In the playoffs, 36 is their second lowest, I believe, points in the paint. I'm trying to pull it up, but I accidentally unsorted the filter that had the team specifically there. But either way, that is too low. That's far too low. They have to be better. Getting to the paint, getting into the paint, making plays there. They say paint to great all the time. They were not paint to great today. I think 36 points in the paint is their fewest in this series. In fact, for the whole playoffs, only 4 times has the team been below 30 points in the paint, and the Pacers have never been below 40, I believe. I'm trying to find their lowest one right now. The Pacers' lowest points in the paint this postseason was 38 before today. They actually won that game against the Bucks. That was game 4, but still, they cannot be that poor in the paint, especially if they're not going to shoot well from deep. They were fine, but not enough volume there, and they couldn't get enough open threes because they weren't getting in the paint where they could then pass the ball out. Credit to the Nets. Isaiah Hartenstein is a terrific defender. Maybe this is why they don't want to stick him on Pascal because that would force him to be more involved and be away from the rim all the time. But he was very good there, and they just in general did a good job between Deuce McBride on Haliburton and everybody else on the defensive end, keeping Pacers players from driving, keeping them out of the paint, making it impossible. Pacers bench wasn't good enough. I glossed over that earlier too, but just stat line wise, 3 for 8 for McConnell, 2 for 5 from Toppin. Shepard was finding it 2 of his 3 threes, but that group was not good enough. And I haven't even mentioned the last thing that I wanted to get to. There's another way to overcome a rebounding battle that isn't just efficiency per possession. You can also keep up in the possession battle with turnovers if you don't turn the ball over very often, right? If you take care of the ball. Well, the Knicks had 9 turnovers, and the Pacers had 18. 18 turnovers for the Pacers in this game. That's 9 more possessions swinging back towards the Knicks, even on top of the rebounding battle we already talked about. Just atrocious for the Pacers. 4 turnovers for Myles Turner, which led the team. 2 for every single Pacer starter, and everyone who played in the bench rotation had a turnover in this game. Brutal for the Pacers. They did so many things poorly in this game. They beat themselves for a little bit. Then the Knicks beat them the rest of the way to finish it off. It's now 3-2 Knicks. The Pacers have to win 2 straight games against the mighty Knicks and their bruising, rebounding style, and Jalen Brunson and his herky-jerky, angular finishing in the lane. They've got to beat them twice in a row to win the series. They've beaten them twice in a row already in the series. We know it's possible for the Pacers to do this. They have not lost at home in almost 2 months. They play at home on Friday. If they win that game, it's a game 7. You never know what can happen. I am never writing this team off. I can't do it. They're very good, right? They've shown they can beat anybody. They've shown they can beat the Knicks in this series specifically, especially in their current hobbled state. But if they play like they did today, or if they get out-energied or out-efforted on the glass, they will not win another game in this series. They have to be better. They have to summon it from within, and they have to play better and execute a better game plan against an adjusted, new-look lineup New York Knicks. Pacers did not do any of that today. They'll have another chance on Friday. Of course, we'll be there covering it all. You guys enjoyed today's show as much as you can after a 30-point playoff loss. Yuck. Back tomorrow. I believe tomorrow will be a crossover with Locked On Knicks. And then Thursday night, Fever are back. Caitlin Clark plays in Indy, so I'll be there. So I'll probably be solo that night, previewing Game 5, and then Friday night, of course, wrapping up Game 6, whatever, or previewing Game 6. I've been all over the place. I had the wrong graphic that said Game 5 after Game 4. I've been all over the place. After Game 6, do something Friday night, and if they win, of course, coming back here for one more. We'll see how it all goes. Looking forward to it. You know, I've covered you on Locked On Pacers plus SI and Forbes. Thank you all so much for listening. If you think I said something dumb or missed something, comment down below on YouTube or tweet at me at Tony R. East. The show is on Twitter at Locked On Pacers. Hope you all have a great rest of your day. We will see you very soon.